Letter 2 to Thomas Pennant, Esquire. In the court of Norton Farmhouse, a manor farm to the northwest of the village, on the White Malms, stood within these 20 years a broad-leaved elm, or witch hazel, Ulmus folio latissimo scabro of Ray, which, though it had lost a considerable leading bough in the great storm in the year 1703, equal to a moderate tree, yet, when felled, contained 8 loads of timber, and, being too bulky for a carriage, was sawn off at 7 feet above the butt, where it measured near 8 feet in the diameter. This elm I mention to show to what a bulk planted elms may attain, as this tree must certainly have been such from its situation. In the centre of the village, and near the church, is a square piece of ground surrounded by houses, and vulgarly called the Plestor. In the midst of this spot stood, in old times, a vast oak, with a short, squat body, and huge horizontal arms extending almost to the extremity of the area. This venerable tree, surrounded with stone steps and seats above them, was the delight of old and young, and a place of much resort in summer evenings, where the former sat in grave debate, while the latter frolicked and danced before them. Long might it have stood, had not the amazing tempest in 1703 overturned it at once, to the infinite regret of the inhabitants and the vicar, who bestowed several pounds in setting it in its place again. But all his care could not avail. The tree sprouted for a time, then withered and died. This oak I mention to show to what a bulk planted oaks also may arrive, and planted this tree must certainly have been, as will appear from what will be said farther concerning this area, when we enter on the antiquities of Selborne. On the Blackmore estate there is a small wood called Lozels, of a few acres, that was lately furnished with a set of oaks of a peculiar growth and great value. They were tall and taper like firs, but standing near together had very small heads, only a little brush without any large limbs. About 20 years ago, the bridge at the Toy, near Hampton Court, being much decayed, some trees were wanted for the repairs that were 50 feet long without bough, and would measure 12 inches diameter at the little end. 20 such trees did a purveyor find in this little wood, with this advantage, that many of them answered the description at 60 feet. These trees were sold for 20 pounds apiece. In the centre of this grove there stood an oak which, though shapely and tall on the whole, bulged out into a large excrescence about the middle of the stem. On this a pair of ravens had fixed their residence for such a series of years that the oak was distinguished by the title of the Raven Tree. Many were the attempts of the neighbouring youths to get at this eyrie. The difficulty whetted their inclinations, and each was ambitious of surmounting the arduous task. But when they arrived at the swelling, it jutted out so in their way, and was so far beyond their grasp, that the most daring lads were awed, and acknowledged the undertaking to be too hazardous. So the ravens built on, nest upon nest, in perfect security, till the fatal day arrived in which the wood was to be levelled. It was in the month of February, when those birds usually sit. The saw was applied to the butt, the wedges were inserted into the opening, the woods echoed to the heavy blows of the beetle or mallet. The tree nodded to its fall, but still the dam sat on. At last, when it gave way, the bird was flung from her nest, and, though her parental affection deserved a better fate, was whipped down by the twigs, which brought her dead to the ground.